me between the first half and the second half, particularly offensively for the Browns, something was different. I just don't.
You know what, though?
I don't imagine that they went into halftime and did something on the chalkboard that suddenly the lights went green, and now it's going to be like this from now on. So that's my fear. And the thing, I mean, it was so ugly in the first half, unspeakably uglier than we thought, and even the most pessimistic predictions would have imagined. That first half was just abysmal. And I'm afraid that that's a little closer to reality than the second half. So, hats off to coming back. Hats off to Hoyer. Hats off to the running game. Very, very concerned with the defense, even though they held them in the second half. They still didn't step up when they needed to with the game on the line. And I'm afraid that first half is much closer to what we're going to see this week, what we're going to see next week, than the second half.
You know what, though? Let me ask you, does last night's performance by Pittsburgh play into your thought at all? Because they really played like garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, and so part of me says, since halftime against the Browns, I mean, the Steelers have been a completely different team. So that actually bolstered my thought last night that maybe the Browns, and listen, I am not in the business of making excuses for these guys, man. We've watched a lot of stinky football over the last however many years. But there's, when you have some youth, when you have a younger team, do you perhaps start the season looking like absolute crap for the first quarter or two and not running routes fast enough and not hitting guys hard enough and not wrapping up tackles? I wonder how much was an extension of the Browns and how much was what you said. Because, of course, I know that you take off the gas in the second half. My thing is I don't think that was what happened in the whole second half. I think you do it for a little bit, and that ball starts rolling downhill against you, and next thing you know, you can't catch back up as the Steelers defense. You're trying to get back into your zone, and you let off. That's why they say you never let off the gas. So I agree with you on some of that, but what do you think looking at them last night? Does that kind of play into your evaluation of going, maybe the Browns did start slow instead of Pittsburgh let the Browns back in the game? Because there's different ways, to look at it.
Right. And I hadn't thought of it exactly like that. That's a really good point, that maybe it really was just a really bad half by the Browns in the first half last week, and what we saw in their last 6 quarters is really who played a look at it. What troubles me more about it is looking forward, that I think we all, especially with Baltimore, might be by this embroiled by the controversy that it would affect them on the field, and maybe in week 3 that might be a winnable game now for the Browns with Baltimore coming in. But after what we saw last night, for as much as the Browns struggled with the Steelers early on, to see what Baltimore did to them last night, that game now does not look like that's going to be much easier than this coming week with New Orleans. So more concerned with how good Baltimore looked than how bad Pittsburgh looked at this point.
This weekend's much more winnable. I picked Baltimore to win the division before the season started. I thought that they were head and shoulders above the rest of the team still. And I've been saying for 2 years now that people said Baltimore and Pittsburgh are over the hill and they're on the way down. And I'm like, somehow those two got lumped together when the decline of Baltimore was greatly exaggerated. Yeah, there's some drop-off on Pittsburgh, and we're seeing that. We saw it last year. We'll see some more this year. But Baltimore, people just lumped them together and said, hey, here's Cleveland and Cincinnati's chance, But I'm like, hey, man, Baltimore isn't handing this thing to anybody, And I think we saw that last night. But I got to tell you, I know you're going to laugh at me. This is not just optimism at all. I really do believe the Browns can win this game this weekend because the Saints do not play as well anywhere. They're nowhere near the same team on the road and outdoors as they are at home. It's going to be a little chill. I'm wondering if coming out of that second half doesn't bolster you a bit, and if the Browns can get at Drew Brees, and if they can, get in his face and mess up his rhythm, I think the Browns can easily shorten the game with the running game, and they can beat New Orleans. And it wouldn't even be that big of an upset to me the way some people would call it.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. The key is really going to be the Browns' defense and their ability to bounce back, first of all, because if Ben Roethlisberger was able to chew them apart, can you imagine what Drew Brees can do if they go out there and perform the same way? So it really is going to come down to how effectively they're able to play and sort of contain Drew Brees in New Orleans' passing game, because what we saw last week is, especially in the first half, that is just, oh boy. I mean, Drew Brees is going to be licking his chops if that's what the Browns are going to come out with. So that's the key. It really is going to be the defense. For as much attention as has been garnered on the Hoyer and the offense and the comeback. That's all true, and that all needs to be consistent, at least better than it started in the first half and more like it was in the second half. But it really is going to be the Browns' defense, because if they get lit up, I think New Orleans is an experienced enough team that if they do get a lead, they're still going to be moving the ball. That Drew Brees will not fall into that trap of lack of intensity or whatever happened last week, and they'll be able to take a lead and hold on to the ball and keep that lead more so than Pittsburgh did. So, yeah, I mean, and we're going to know early. I would say in the first quarter, we're going to know if the Browns defense is showing up to play and if they're going to be able to stay in the game. We're going to know in the first two series probably when New Orleans has the ball. Do the Browns show up or not?
And I've been telling people all week, now this is up to the Browns to take advantage of it, but I do believe for those of you going down this weekend, I think that there will be a more raucous atmosphere for the beginning of this game here on Sunday than there has been for a Browns home game in many years, because of the way they finished that game, and of course the natural home opener built into it as well. But I think you put that they'll have the crowd. I mean, they always do, but they'll have it even louder, changes that they've made. So I think maybe you may feel the building rock for the first time in many years, but can the Browns take advantage of that, like you said? Now, if you can get that defense playing and barking and the crowd's going, man, you haven't seen that in Cleveland in a long time. So the potential is there, but as it always is, you got to go out and take advantage of it. But I've had several people this week on our show, and I'm curious if you would agree with this statement, because I'm already kind of there of just what we've seen. Do you think that talent-wise, the Browns are, and this is not meaning they're going to be a playoff team or anything like that, they've got the best solid base roster that they've had since they came back? Because I've had several people say that, and I'm like, you know what? I can feel you on that already, just based on the little bit that we've seen. And I'm talking about overall roster and talent.
No, I do not agree with that. I can't pinpoint a team. I mean, immediately you would look to the two playoff teams. I mean, there's a couple of other seasons that I think were a little more put together than this. I guess we need to keep the jury out on this year anyway, until if at the end of the year, then at least a little farther in. But yeah, I don't see it. I don't see that they're top to bottom. I don't know that, and we talked last week, I don't know that this team is a whole lot better than it was in like 2000, 2001. I'm looking at some of the other 4-12 teams that they had. I'm not seeing a whole lot here that is dramatically better. I think, yeah, they're better than at their worst moments, maybe. I don't think this is the worst team that they put on the field, but no, far from the best team. I mean, at least at this point. It remains to be seen. We'll see how some of these things pan out, but no, I don't think this is the best team they've put on the field.
And I'll tell you why I say that I'm seeing some beginnings of that, and I'm with you. One or two Butch Davis teams were pretty strong, and obviously you won 10 games in 2007, but I do believe that they've got the best offensive line that they've had, and Mitchell Schwartz is the weak spot, obviously, but as a whole, I really love this offensive line. And I'm telling you, the running attack, and I don't even care if you want to figure Ben Tate into that or not. I've been yelling about Crowell all preseason, and I love T. West when they drafted him. I really believe they'll have the strongest running core, especially by the time this season is over with. And look, I know some people like him, some people don't. This isn't a very big pool that I'm basing this off of, but I'll put Brian Hoyer as the best quarterback, actual quarterback, not thrower, that the Browns have had since they came back. That's a valid point. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. I think if you want to go position by position and point to certain guys and say that's the best quarterback, that's the best running back, that's the best left tackle, that's valid, and they may win that. That may be true. There may be some players on this team that are the best at their position since they've been back. That might be true. But yeah, as a whole, no, I don't think so. I am, and to your point too, I am. If there's one aspect of the comeback offensively that I'm really excited about, it is that running game, that they came back and did not abandon the run, because that is one of those hallmark things you see with a team that's down 20 points. They just throw every play, and your quarterback throws for 450 yards and 4 interceptions, and you lose 30-10, and it doesn't mean anything. It looks good on paper that your quarterback had big numbers. But they didn't, and they ran the ball basically as many times as they threw, and they ran it well, and that was impressive to me. That not only the performance and the numbers that they rolled up, but the discipline, because it's incredibly easy to give up. No, we got to throw every play. You get in that video game mentality. We got to score now. We got to score every play.
but they didn't do that. So hats off to them for that. I applaud that, and it did pay off. And maybe that is a building block, if anything else, that they can sort of use and say, you know what, yeah, we're going to be able to run the ball. Preferably not when we're down by 23 points, but yeah, we're going to be able to run this ball.
And I'm going to say this. I said it before camp about Crowell, but AK, look at just since 1999. You notice the NFL, every year, in one season, by the end of the year, they're national names, and all of a sudden, they're part of the star culture of the league. Like every year, guys emerge out of nowhere and become real stars. The Browns, he made the cover, but, I mean, that's the closest you can point to. The Browns never have that guy. I mean, maybe you could say Josh Gordon just because he kind of, even though people that know talent knew what he had, you know what I mean? Like, there's really nobody that played under the radar in Cleveland, and at the end of the season, people go, man, that's whatever, Arian Foster, whatever, any name, there's hundreds of them that we can throw out there. No reason to pick anybody out. I believe Crowell has the potential to be, not even West was drafted. Crowell has the potential at the end of the year to be one of the top backs in the league where people go, where the hell did Cleveland find that guy? And Cleveland never has that guy. Never.
No. And that's what they're going to need to turn this thing around, honestly. They need a couple breaks like that, where they get a guy like who is Brett Favre when the Packers found him?
Exactly.
Like, where did they get him? And, that type of thing. Johnny Unitas. You look at some of the great teams and the leaders, the great players. They were not number one draft picks. They were not ballyhooed coming out of college. They were obscure, in some cases, players that came out of nowhere and became stars and lifted their team up with them. So you're absolutely right. I'm not necessarily that he's going to be that guy, but that's the kind of thing that they need. And if they're going to turn this around, they need something like that to happen.
Absolutely, and it's all exciting, potential, and all of that. End of the day, what do you think happens this weekend, JK? Can the Browns turn that home opener deal around this weekend? The crowd's going to be lively. They've got a live opponent to do it. What do you think, man? Come on. Are you out on the ledge with me? Can they do it?
I'm talking you down off the ledge, Jerry. I hate to say it. I think we're going to know real early. We're going to know in the first 5 it's going to play out. But I can't see them being able to contain Drew Brees for an entire game. I think this defense is now we really have to question if this defense is nowhere near as good as we thought it was going to be. So, no, I've got to go solid New Orleans, something along the lines of like 31-13, 31-14, something like that. I just can't see the Browns having the endurance to stay with the Saints with a Super Bowl contender, honestly, whoever it may be, for an entire day. So, yeah, I sad as I am to make the prediction this way, I can't see I see another sad home opener in the Browns' future.
Oh, man. All right, man. I can't argue with you. So that's the thing. The Browns don't let you argue until they turn it around themselves.
They've got to prove us wrong before, right? I mean, that's what they've got to do, and thus far they have not done that.
I'm going to send them a letter. Like, you ever see the old thing with, I'm going to send the Browns a letter. Some people make the sarcastic, funny ones where they want their money back. I'm just going to send them a letter and go, look, man, every week I come out here and I talk about, just give me something to lean on here. Anything. Yeah. Anything, guys. Please, can you ever think of guys like Jerry?
Watchable. Please be watchable. That's all we're really looking for, is a team that's watchable. We're not looking for a Super Bowl team right now. We're not looking for a championship contender. We want watchable. That's what we're asking for. Please deliver it.
I'm telling you, my gut is churning upset this, and I don't even see it as an upset, man. And that's crazy because I picked New Orleans and Seattle to be right there at the end in the NFC. I agree that they're a Super Bowl team. I just think that, hey, man, a lot of times teams that are contenders, they start the season 0-2 too. It's not like it doesn't happen, and something tells me, man, they're going to ride the momentum from that second half. But we'll find out, like you said, real quick here. Real quick, you know?
Real quick, yeah.
And I'm sure I'll be getting some text messages during the first half going, oh, well, here's your guys. We got some destiny over here,
hopefully
too.
Not as bleak as last week, yeah. We'll know quickly, but hopefully it won't be quite as maudlin as it was at halftime last Sunday.
Brother, I'm going to lay it out here now, man. Cleveland's going to have a good weekend this weekend, man. The Tribe is going to go take care of business in Detroit, and the Browns are going to upset the Saints at home.
What a day that would be. And we're almost a year away. If you remember that Sunday last year when the Indians clinched their playoff spot, the last game of the season. That was the day the Browns beat the Bengals. Happened at the same time, and people were flipping back and forth between the two. So maybe this Sunday can be just like that. The Indians wrap up a sweep of Detroit while the Browns are beating a Super Bowl contender over on Cleveland Browns Stadium. So.